Thing.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here in de grote zaal of Pakhuis de Zwijger. We're not the only ones watching the show tonight, and a lot of people watching the live stream. Let's wave at them. Hi. Welcome you too here. Wow, it's a full house. That's good. That's good. Hi, I'm Patrick van der Heijden. I'm your host tonight. This is what I do. I host events for curious people. And usually what I do is I really dive deep into the lives and the work of my guests. But it was an easy ride today because two of the three guys on stage offered me my first real job 20 years ago. So I know them from Haver tot Gort. So an easy ride. And then the other guest is a guy whose book I read 20 years ago and always remembered it. So it's an honor to stand here and host this evening. Yeah, World of Wonders and the future of the experience economy. That is. Where is it heading, the experience economy? That's the question for tonight. It's a peculiar evening. It's about economy and design. It's about dreaming and thinking, and it's about the wonderful connection between your right part of your brain and your left part of the brain. So let's see how peculiar you all are. So where are the designers? Where are the experienced designers? Wow, actually, some people are doubting. What the heck? Nobody's checking. So, so where are the economists? Some very proud economists there. Well, who actually read The Experience Economy by Pine and Gilmore? Well, there's still a lot of work to do. Yeah. So who's curious by nature? That's a good one. That's a good one. But I see there a quadrant that's not curious by nature. So maybe we can work on that during the evening. There are actually two occasions why we organized this. And there are actually two books. One book just came out. It's called Wow, Worlds of Wonder, and is written by Erik Beer and Stan Boshouwers. And the other one was written 20 years ago by Gilmore and Pine. And we have Pine here in the room. So, so these three authors are going to share their thoughts with you today. They're going to tell their story back to back, so lean back, make yourself comfortable. The next 50 minutes will be filled with a lot of images and a lot of beautiful words. So hold your horses till after that, write down your questions, memorize them, and reserve your snedigheid for the last round. So we'll have a conversation with the whole room. We start off with Stan Boshouwers talking about what is Worlds of Wonder, about the book. Then Joseph Pine will tell about the current state of the experience economy, and then Erik Beer will take us on a deep dive into experience design. Okay, Stan Boshouwers. Yeah. Please join me on stage. Yeah, give him a big hand. So I once asked Stan, what do you want from your entrepreneurship? And you said, I want a full house. I just want a full house.
Yes. This is the dream.
This is the part that succeeded. Okay, have fun.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Yeah, he worked with us for 10 years, imagine that. He was the first. He did everything. He did the consultancy and the design and the account management and the text writing. Amazing. What we call a sheep with 5 feet in the Netherlands. And I am very happy to see this big route from this standpoint here. So many people interested in experience design or experience economy. and maybe helping us out with the eternal question, what is experience design? Tell me what it is. This is such a tragic paradox. It's a bit ironic. What we do is we explain our clients' stories, but explaining what we do ourselves is a tough job. Actually, that's why we wrote the book. The book doesn't have so many readers yet, but we are very enthusiastic readers, Eric and me, because finally we see it's described so clearly. What is a world of wonder, and why should we have them? That's actually the basic question, and to this small part of definition I would like to tour you in the next 15 minutes. Let me start by our history. This makes us a little modest. Some people know this moment. This is 1991, years before Joseph Pine even dreamed of the experience economy. And this is our company car, Eend. And that's Eric here down, and I'm up there, 21 years old. And this is one of our first products. Here you see it installed. And it is an experience. It's what we call these days an exhibit, or even an interactive. Now, what was it? Our client was making an exhibition about the psychology of sound, and he asked us to do some creative work. Now, this is 1991, and we had a meme. This is called a meme now. Now, it wasn't called that yet, but it's called a meme now, and the meme was that when you played record backwards, deathless messages were inside the grooves. So, if the oldest memories, right? So, if you played the record backwards, you could hear new messages. And so we said, we have an exhibition here about the psychology of sound. Let's try people for themselves. So what you see here is a coffin, and there's a little pickup there with a needle on a record, and then with these two buttons you can try for yourself and see if you can find these deathless messages. So years later we discovered this was an exhibit. But you don't have to have had an MBA to ask some critical questions about this. Is this viable? Is this a business? Does it make any money? Is this worthwhile? And actually, if you would have asked us then, we wouldn't have had the slightest answer. But believe it or not, we made a really small business out of this. And the business had no plan, and it had no direction. It was just creating contraptions like these. And the biggest miracle was that sometimes we had a telephone, a landline, and sometimes the telephone rang, and we had clients on the phone, and they asked for stuff like this, or totally other stuff. And I have never read a business book that has explained this, that a company without any profile has people that call with questions. And afterwards, now, being old and gray, I have an explanation. It was because we didn't have a profile. We were a blanco canvas, and our clients projected their wishes upon us. So we did the craziest things. And then after some years, the book came out of the person who's speaking next to me. It's Joseph Pine. And he said, he was announcing a new economy, and he said, it's the experience economy. And people thought, what kind of crazy thing is that, an experience economy? But imagine what kind of experience it was for Eric and me. Suddenly, we were not just two fools making contraptions, we were part of an economy. And not just an economy, it was an economy that would surpass all service economies and product economies and commodities economies. It would be the new thing. And so that was very cool. Suddenly, serious organizations started to call with serious jobs. And we were part of this thing. It was a little bit the experience of two guys having a picnic in an empty park and then suddenly be in the middle of a rock festival because it was planned there. So we were in the middle of this hurricane. And this is what we started, and this is what we do today. Big rooms for big clients that want the same thing as the guy with the Psychology of Sound exhibition, but now on a much bigger scale. So thank you, Joe. It was a good idea, and he was right, because we're absolutely not the only one who are doing this. In Europe, about 10 or 20 businesses are doing this. We employ a fixed team of 40 in the center of Utrecht, and then 40 flexible forces around that. And we are thriving. So this is the National Archive in Hilversum for Audiovisual. That's Nestlé headquarters in Switzerland. This is a science center we did in Delft, and so we have about 40 more projects, and then about 20 now currently in development. So, is it an economy? Yes. Is it growing? Probably. Now let's go back to the question I started with. What is experience design and what is a world of wonder? I would say these are worlds of wonder, but I would like to take you on a short moment of definition. And the definition has been made many times. Our business grew from theater and from entertainment world, and from literature. And so every country has its old names, and the name World of Wonder was coined up by ourselves. So it's just a word. It's a world of wonder. It's a world where you experience amazement, where you experience excitement. But you could also say it's a room that tells a story. It's a room that takes you on a journey and explains you something. And it looks a bit fashionable maybe, but it is not. Let me take you to the first one ever made. In 1902, some people went in a cave in Lascaux in France, and they discovered these paintings on the wall. And that was a great discovery because they appear to be some of the oldest paintings ever found. Since then, even older paintings have been found, but these appear to be 15,000 years old. So what has happened here? What did they do? Why did they paint this on a wall? We don't know, but it was quite an early expression. And it was a room, so why would this not be a world of wonder? And since it was rediscovered, thousands of people have visited this cave and amazed themselves by the mysterious expression of these beautiful paintings. We still don't know exactly what they are and how, in what circumstances they were made, but they still are there, and just because we are not sure, they're still so attractive. And the irony is that so many people visited the caves that the paintings started deteriorating. So what did they do? They built a new World of Wonder in front of that. And this is in fact also the 5th release of Worlds of Wonder in that place. Our colleagues from Casama, that's a French experience design agency, made a cave before the caves to save the original paintings. But what we see here is that this World of Wonder is sustaining now for 15,000 years, and actually also that since human memory, there are Worlds of Wonder. And in a way, Worlds of Wonder constitute human memory, because this is how it all started. It's the first expression of human thought, of human thinking, of human imagination, and it already was done in a space. And since that time, we started building temples and churches and courthouses, and actually all those places do the same. They wonder people, they amaze people, they want to engage people in a story that is spatial, that is a room. So that might give us a form of definition. Now, what do we do? What do we do in such a world? In fact, what we do, and this is pretty precise, what we do in a world of wonder, we imitate the world of a curious person. So what we do is we design a space or an object that is the object as seen by a curious person. Because when you're curious or nosy or inspired, you see the world slightly different from a person in its normal state. So what we do is we create a space that is a little bit exalted, that is a little bit eccentric, and we give that space to people in a normal space. So this is what happens. She sees that world and she starts to resonate with the curious world of the person that just saw it. So that's the whole idea of a world of wonder. You imitate a curious person. Because when you're curious, you are sensitive. When you're curious, you're awake. When you're curious, the world talks to you a little bit different. So when we let the world talk a little bit different, people become curious. That's the whole idea of a world of wonder. Make sense? Recognize? Good, I see a nod. Why would you do that? Do we need places to convey information? In fact, we don't. We have the internet. Very interesting. Since the internet became big, the last 10 years, our company was booming. So actually, the more virtual the world gets, the more the longing for real places becomes. It's a very interesting paradox that I don't have an explanation for that. But we don't make Worlds of Wonder to convey information. We make Worlds of Wonder to share dreams and ideas and stories in the making. That's why we are not specifically exactly sure of, are best for a world of wonder, because there has to be a little bit rest for amazement. And when everything is clear, do a book, do a website. If you want to amaze people and engagement in something new, do a room. So this is how the work starts. We start with the internal things, the interiors of a curious mind. These are the friends of Burning Man. This is a one-year festival. You see it in the desert of Nevada. And actually, they do the same. What they do is when you want to join this festival, It's a festival that is held once a year. You are obliged to put one artwork in the festival. So all people put one of these crazy things in the desert, and then they become the guests at their own party. So you are inside the subjective experience of all your guests. And that is super cool. So there's a city there for 1 week where you walk into the subjective of other people. And actually, that's also what a World of Wonder is. It's sharing subjectivity. It's about hacking the mind. Because for one time, you can be in someone else's experience. And that's super cool about this form of design. So this is a beautiful quote from the architect Stephen Johnson. Our thoughts form our spaces, and then the spaces return the favor. So first we set up a decor, and then we are the guest in the decor, and we get the inspiration back. And this happens in so much stories. Now, before you think it's all about hippies and artwork, no, it doesn't have to be a nice story. This is one of the, oh, wait a minute, this one. This is one of the most strongest examples we know of a world of wonder. This is Daniel Liebeskind, and this is in Berlin, and this is the Jewish Museum. And with his architecture and just this metal on the floor, he tells a story that cannot be told in words. It is a fear that he communicates that is so big that it's tough to describe it in words. So he did it in concrete. I don't have to tell you how strong this message is. So this is also a world of wonder. Now, if you're still with me, I would like to do a little psychological detour about how this might work. Why is this so intense, without knowledge, without language, without anything? And I have a pretty naive psychological theory. It's not long, it's short. So let's say this is you. And up there is all you know, so it's your mind. It's somewhere here, right? Mind. And, well, that's all you know, so you have your senses and all kinds of information come to you, and there you are, and when you learn something, this happens, right? Still with me? Simple, right? This is what you learn, and sometimes you have the feeling when you learn something suddenly, like an insight or an idea of a recognition, and what you feel then physically is some kind of expansion. Wow! That's what we call a wow moment. And every good world of wonder has some of these moments. It's a feeling, a physical feeling of expansion, of insight. But if you do them again and again, you get a new steadily state, and then you have learned something. Now, this naive theory poses, if you agree with me on this one, there's a very interesting thing, because look at the rest. What is that? It's everything you don't know. And that's a big space. So it's very interesting to recognize and to know that we are continuously functioning in a complete bath of mystery. And we like to work with that mystery, and we call that the fantastic unknown. It's the fantastic unknown. It's a big playing field. It's everything we don't know, and probably this is an eternal space. We're not sure of that, because if we would be sure, it would not be the unknown anymore. So it's a mystery, but it's a great playing field. Now, where do we come in? When we want to make worlds of wonder, we are going to be here. It's the zone between what you know and what you don't know. Because if we're going to be there and there, we're into autonomous art, which is beautiful, but it's not our job. And I don't think it's a job of experience design, not of functional experience design. We are on the frontier of what you know and what you don't know, and we call this the wonder zone. All our work as designers is into this wonder zone. Look what you do when you are in a wonder zone. Every activity that is between knowing and not knowing, between being and not being, between security and surprise, is in this wonder zone. And this is such a great area to play around with. And this is actually the domain that I want to talk with you about. Now, why is this such an interesting space? Because, well, it's all very positive, but there's something else. And that is that when people are in this zone, they become the most intelligent. People become smarter than ever when they are triggered to be in this zone, because all their senses go on. All their left brain and right brain go on. Petrichor referred to that. And they become the most intelligent people ever. Let me give you an example of a theater we did for children. So this is an example of how the wonder zone might work. Here you see an anatomical theater. There's a corpse, and there's a show here for 12-year-old children to tell them about 400 years of the history of science. And what we wanted to tell is how researching the human body enhance our view of the universe. So here you see a projected human body, and on the ceiling of this anatomical theater, you see the different cosmogonics. So how did we view the universe? And this is for children of 12 years up. Let me see. You see how medical imaging proceeded through time. I show you this to explain why we think the wonder zone makes people very intelligent. Children from 12 years up understand this story, and they take like 50 or 100 images in 400 years history of science. Who would expect that young children can digest so much? Well, they can, because they are in the wonder zone. So, at last, I would like to show you some applications of this. This is one application. This is a project we did. And this is a museum. And of course, museums need to attract new audiences with complex messages. So they are our clients. Now I take you to a completely other end of the spectrum, the commercial world. This is a dairy farm. It's called Friesland Campina. And they do milk. And this is inside a research center, and 300 scientists are researching milk here. And this is the visitor center, and here you see a milk drop that is enhanced 100,000 times, this drop here. And when you look into the drop, you see a film that gets you in. It's a microscopic film, and it is kind of a cork, and it shows you what is inside of the milk, because that's what the researchers are researching. So they have, until now, found 200 agents in the milk that help us, that are beneficial for our health. So for the smokers here, when you buy a packet of cigarettes, it says that it contains 70 agents to give you cancer. Well, if you drink a glass of milk, there are 200 agents that make you healthy. And this film is about those 200 agents. And this is a corporate application. Why is it an application? Do people who drink milk, are they interested in 200 things in their glass of milk? Maybe not. I wouldn't say so. But Friesland Campina has 18,000 shareholders, because they are the farmers who deliver the milk, because they are the owners of this corporation. And of every liter of milk they deliver, they have to pay 2 cents to R&D. And this exhibit helps them understanding why. Because in 1 year, they will have found 300 beneficial agents. So here you see, on the completely profit side, that's also what experience design might do. And now I have an even stronger image example of the corporate world. What you see here is a former art video installation applied to car leasing. Car leasing used to be quite simple, and you had a job, you got a lease car from your boss, and the bigger your job was, the bigger your car. And it's not that simple anymore, because now new millennials don't want to have a car, they want to have a scooter, and they want to have a public transport abonnement, and it's very complex. Then above that, the company has corporate sustainability goals, so they have to fulfill their sustainability needs, and that doesn't mean big cars necessarily. And then they have the image, and they have their transportation system, and it has to be multimodal, etc., etc., etc. So what do? This is a management team of a company, and they want to discuss about their mobility issues. So they go inside this installation, which used to be an art installation, and they see the problem of mobility from all sides, literally. All those people are talking to them. And they talk to each other, and they are inside here for 2 hours. And then they come to a new mobility concept. And of course, the host of this is a big leasing company. And they are looking in the afternoon and see their discussions. And then they sell them the perfect leasing contract. So here you see, also in the old-fashioned profit industry, experience design has a purpose. Now, why do I show you this? Because this is not a one-off example. We have a glass of milk that contains 200 agents, and we have a leasing company that does an art installation. The point is that the world is getting extremely complex. Leasing a car is extremely complex, as is a glass of milk. And the more complex the world goes, the more we need tools to tackle that complexity. With me? Mm-hmm. And I like the commerciality of this example because advertising has been very good in collecting all characteristics of a brand into one image, which is great. But we lose complexity, and complexity is something to honor. So experience design gives an opportunity to honor complexity and deliver tools to tackle the complexity. This is, just to lighten up another one, this is the people of West Jutland who want to tell about their history. Tourists are in their boat and experience the history of that country from a first perspective of how the people of that country experience it. Eric has the film. Total other application in the tourism sector. And what about this? Talking about entering someone's mind. An experiment to find out the mind of Mondrian when he was in his New York episode. What is the relation between his art and his music? How can we understand him from a first-person perspective? That's an experiment we did in Amersfoort. And luckily, we are exploring the arts and research the arts from this dynamic perspective. Yeah, this is the conclusive one I wanted to show you. This is in the center of Utrecht. This is Dom Under, because in the center of Utrecht, people live for 20 centuries. It started with the Romans and up. So we have an archaeological treasury right in the center. So a client of us dug a hole in the ground, and you can see, as a visitor of the city, you can dive in and see 20 centuries of history and see it for yourself. And I would like to focus your attention on these children here, because they all got a flashlight, and they are requested to scavenge this room, to explore this room, and to light the lights on what they find. And what they find has a little light sensor and gives to their earphone the information about that sensor. So what do the kids do? They feel like a real archaeologist, and they assemble their own story. And maybe this is the most important thing about experience design these days. Because don't we all have to assemble our own stories? Aren't we all so much in turmoil that we need new stories without anyone giving us the framing? The institutions that do that are gone. But the turmoil is big. If you look at the world, I don't know what it is with you, but sometimes I don't understand it anymore. And sometimes I think, what the hell is happening? Who has rocketed a car into the space that comes along the Earth or the Sun? Who is this lady that a Japanese guy married to? What are the contents of that bird? What are alternative facts? Etc., etc. The world is in turmoil. We need to have new stories like the guys with the flashlight. And it's my sincere hope that Worlds of Wonder will help us to exchange the stories we have in our minds with each other. That's my story. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Back in the days, when I worked at Tinker, we did a lot of stuff. We did advertising, we did events, we did consultancy, we did education, we did everything. What happened? Why did you start focusing on these worlds of wonder? You could have changed all these branches with these beautiful thoughts.
Yeah, why only this? It doesn't feel pretty narrow, I must say, but this is the gravity point. This is where it all comes together. This is where our creativity is, and this is what we started doing this. And we always come back at this point, because this brings everything together. Maybe it's because we're two psychologists and we like to make these mental worlds, these mindscapes. That's what we do. We build mindscapes all the time. Yeah. And that's the pure thing for us.
Okay, so you're not designers. You call yourself designers, even in this talk, but you're actually psychologists.
We are not spatial designers. We're also not media designers. If we are designers, we're mental designers, but that sounds a little bit crooked. Yeah.
Some kind of guru thing.
Ooh, no, not that.
Okay, we'll get back to you. In this small Tinker library that I encountered 20 years ago, there was a fresh book called The Experience Economy. That's the copy I read. It was written by Pine and Gilmore. As I said, Joe Pine is here. Please join me on stage. And it was a big hit because Joseph Pine and his partner helped us understand what this era was about, these beautiful 90s. So I hope he helps us understand this era a bit better.
All right.
Give him a hand.
Thank you very much. Stan, thank you for inviting me here. I just wanted to point out, just because you realize you're part of the economy, it doesn't mean you're not still a fool making contraptions.
Okay.
But your contraptions are amazing worlds of wonder.
Thanks. Okay.
And a week ago, somebody dared to call me an intellectual, and then you heard Patrick earlier basically call me peculiar. And I think the title of my first slide validates both of those. Capulus recapitulates economica, which is a fancy way of saying that you can understand the entire history of economic progress in a coffee bean. Because coffee is a commodity. It's something that you grow in the ground, extract out of the ground, you sell it on the open marketplace. If you convert the price of a coffee bean, like I have here, from a per bushel to a per cup basis, you know how much coffee costs per cup as a commodity? 2 or 3 European cents. All right, that's it, 2 or 3 European cents. That's what coffee is worth as a commodity. But if you take these beans and you roast them, you grind them, you package them, you put them on a grocery store shelf, and now you can get 5, 10, 15 cents per cup of coffee. If you then take those roasted beans and you brew them for a customer in a vending machine, a kiosk, a corner diner, a bodega, or a brown cafe somewhere, now you get $1, $1.50, maybe 2 euros, for a cup of coffee. But if you surround the brewing of that coffee with the ambiance and theater of a Starbucks, and now how much you pay? Right? 4, 5, 6 euros per cup of coffee. My standard order at Starbucks here, I think, is 7.30 euros. And is it worth that, right? Absolutely. Because they've taken something that is a commodity and shifted it up this progression of economic value and turned it into an experience by creating a place, right? A world that people want to spend time in and value the cup of coffee that is made just for them in this particular place. So that does recapitulate the entire progression of economic value, where we've gone from an agrarian economy based on commodities through an industrial economy based off of goods through a service economy, and today we're in an experience economy, where experiences are in fact a distinct economic offering, as distinct from services as services are from goods. Experiences are basically when you use goods as props and services as a stage to engage each and every individual in an inherently personal way, and thereby create a memory which is the hallmark of the experience. So just like we went through an agrarian economy and through an industrial economy and through a service economy, we are today in an experience economy, where experiences have become the predominant economic offering, where experiences are what people value today. And in fact, they want goods and services to be commoditized, right? To be treated like a commodity where people only care about the price, right? They want to buy things at the lowest possible price and the greatest possible convenience so they can spend their hard-earned money and their hard-earned time on the experiences that they value. And that's what's going on in the world. You can see that not just in coffee. You can look at any industry and see how it has shifted through this progression, that every industry has a core commodity at the basis of it, from which those commodities, those raw materials, are used to make or manufacture goods and surround those goods with services, and then eventually can turn those services into experiences. Now, one of the things that's happened since we came out with the book now 2 decades ago, it actually will be 20 years in March, when the Experience Economy was first published. We're coming out with a new hardcover edition in the fall. And one of the things that happened in that time was the rise of what's called customer experience, right, or CX. You know, many companies have CX managers that are managing their customer experience. And I want to point out, when most people use that term customer experience, even though we may have been the first people to use it, when most people now use that term today, they don't mean what I'm talking about here. They don't mean an experience as a distinct economic offering. What they basically mean by the term customer experience, at least as it's commonly used, is let's make our interactions with customers nice and easy and convenient. Right? And all those are well and good, but those are service characteristics. Those are not experience characteristics. If you want to create a true distinctive experience, instead of making things just nice, I mean, nice is nice, but it has to rise to the level of memorability, where you create a memory within each individual person. If you don't create a memory, then you didn't create an experience. And then easy is also very good, but when we try and make things easy for customers, what we often do is we routinize them, make it easy on us to serve those customers, and that routinization gets in the way of being personal. Right? Experiences are inherently personal, that you reach inside of people and create that experience within them. That's why engagement is so important. It's the key word. The economic function, your staging experience is to engage individual people inside. And then convenience is the actual antithesis of what I'm talking about. To be convenient means let's get in and out as quickly as possible. Spend as little time with the company as possible. With experiences, on the other hand, you need to understand the value of the time. Not your time, the customer's time. The value of the time that they spend with you. That's what people are really buying when they're buying an experience. Right? They're buying the time that they spend with you. Think about it this way, is that you can look at any one of these economic offerings and look at the distinctions between them, right? Draw a line between them. There's many that we could talk to. But the core one between services and experiences is, in fact, time. With services, it's about time well saved. Time well saved. What people are looking for is nice and easy and convenient. They're looking to get in and out as quickly as possible, looking for you to save their time so they could, again, spend that time on the experiences that they enjoy. And from those experiences, what they're looking for is time well spent. Time well spent. They value the time that they spend with you. You need to think about in your company, with your interactions, your encounters with customers, are you providing time well spent? Do customers value the time that they spend with you? And that, of course, is what Worlds of Wonder are all about. That people spend several hours, right? Sometimes all day, sometimes multiple days in some of these experiences, and they value that time, right? Time is key. This is John Jurdy, one of the famous experience architects in the U.S. He passed away a few years ago, but I love how John Jurdy thinks, and he talks about experiential design. And what he says about experiential design, basically, is what we do is design time. And that's what a World of Wonder does. You're not just designing the place. You're designing what happens in that place to the people that are in it. You're designing time, the time that your customers are flowing through that space, right? It's a movable experience in that regard. As architects, as experience designers, never think you're just designing a place, a physical place, or even a virtual place, but rather you're designing the entire experience that people have in there, right, that you are setting the stage for, right? Again, with that experience happening inside of them. John Jurdy actually coined the term, or at least popularized it, of place making. That what you need to do, what you need to be are place makers. Creating places that people want to spend their time in. Creating places that people think of as authentic. That a place where they belong, that they almost become part of the place. Not a generic space, but a very particular place. Something that only you could produce, that is an extension of who you are as a company, your identity, and your purpose in the world. That's what placemaking is. And so I don't know if, Patrick, if you want to ask somebody, how many people here are placemakers, right? But it's the same sort of idea. If you're an experienced designer, then you are a placemaker. And a key thing to understand about this progression, that in every case, you are what you charge for. You are what you charge for. If you charge for undifferentiated stuff, you're in the commodities business. If you charge for tangible things, you're in the goods business. If you charge for the activities your people perform, you're in the services business. But economically, you're in the experience business if and only if you charge for time. The time your customers spend with you again. Time that is time well spent. What happens in any one of these economic changes is that companies always give away the next level of value in order to better sell what they have today. You know, even Starbucks. Starbucks doesn't charge for the experience. They don't charge, they're not economically in the experience economy because they're still charging for the coffee. And instead, in order to truly do that, you need to figure out how do you charge admission? How do you charge a membership fee? How do you charge some way of charging for the time your customers spend with you? You wouldn't imagine going to a theme park without paying an admission fee. You would imagine going to a movie without paying an admission fee. A concert, a play, a sporting event, a nightclub, right? On and on the list could go because you recognize that these are experiences, that you charge admission for experiences. Or if you're a member of a club or some other sort of organization where you're charging per month or per year, you're charging for the time that you spend with that organization, with that company. Charging for time is what economically makes you an experienced business. And eventually we have to align what we charge for with what our customers value. And that means if they value the experience, that you charge for time. Again, the time that they spend with you. So I mentioned that Starbucks doesn't yet do that, but there's a chain of cafes in the United Kingdom called Zifferblatt cafes. Zifferblatt is the Russian word for wall clock. And here what they do is that you go in there and they charge for the time you spend in there, 8 to 10 pence per minute, and then the coffee's free. Right, you see that exactly, you assume the old model, the goods, inside of the experience model. So you go in there, and for your 8 to 10 pence a minute, you can get a respite from your day. You can sit there and read. You can do work. You can socialize. You can play games. Whatever is the value that you're looking for that time. And they recognize that by charging explicitly for the time that you spend inside of the place. Right? And that's what they view as time well spent. This is a men's clothing store in San Francisco called Wingtip. And Wingtip, they call it, the basic theme of the place is solutions for the modern gentleman. You can sort of see what sort of place it is. And Amir Rad, the co-founder of this place, Wingtip, was reading our book, The Experience Economy, and he got to the page in chapter 3 where we asked the question, what would you do differently if you charge admission? Right? What would you do differently? Because if you charge admission, you're going to have to make it worth an admission fee. And if you make it worth an admission fee, right, then what an admission fee does is it sends a signal that this is a place worth experiencing. So he thought about how can I possibly charge admission to a men's store? You know, I'll just drive people away. They won't want to buy my clothing and other goods and that sort of thing. And so he finally hit upon the idea. What he did is he created a members-only club. Right, and the first 2 floors of this building in San Francisco is the Wingtip store, and then on the top 2 floors is the Wingtip Club, where he's charging several $1,000 initiation fee and then several $100 per month to join the club. It's a men's store, but the club is open to both men and women. And what he found is that you go into the men's store, you learn about the club, right? You go there, see what it's all about. You want to join the club, and when you're a member of the club, you're going to tend to spend more in the store and so forth. That they feed on top of each other. Both of them are more profitable because of the existence of the other. So it requires some innovation, it requires some thinking, right? But the question is, what would you do differently if you charged admission? Because again, that's what experiences are all about. And I want to put it in a little different light, right? I've emphasized the fact about the difference between services and experiences, or time well spent for experiences and time well saved for services. And there's a basic dichotomy there, right? On the left side, you got services, on the right side, you've got experiences. But there are other elements of this progression. What what many companies do is they don't even rise to the level of time well saved. Instead, what do? Is they provide time wasted, right? That they waste your time. And how many interactions do we have with companies, right, every week, every day, where they're wasting our time? I called into, a couple of days ago, before I came over here to the Netherlands, I called into Marriott Corporation, right? I had a particular question. And I get on the phone, and there's this, this robot basically asking me in a almost human voice, what I wanted to do. And she said, just tell me what you like to do. And I told her what I wanted to do. And that's not on their list of things that the robot knows how to respond to. So she said, well, I want to get you to what you need. Just let me ask you a couple of questions. And then she repeated, what do you want to do? And I said, what do I want to do again? She said, well, let me ask you a couple of questions, and what do you want to do? So finally I lied. I said, I want to talk, I tried talking to a representative. That didn't work. So finally I said, make a reservation. I know how to make a reservation. I'll turn you that. And I talked to that person, and it had nothing to do with making a reservation. But it was the only way I get through that system. And this did not make them more efficient. They didn't save any money in being able to do this. I spent the same amount of time with the representative that I would have otherwise. All it did was waste my time. Right? How often do we ask customers for information that we already have, wasting their time? So when you waste time, the first thing to do is to figure out where are the areas where we're wasting customers' time, and either eliminate that or figure out a way to turn the time that they have to spend anyway into time well spent. Here I'd point out the Walt Disney Company is the best in the world at taking what otherwise would be wasted time and turning it into valuable time, into time well spent. You think about when you wait for a ride, right? That's time wasted. You want to get on the ride as soon as possible. So the first thing they did is they put up signs there that tell you the time to get through this line, is, say, 30 minutes. They always beat that time, right? So if it's only 20 minutes, you think, wow, that wasn't as long, right? That's a little better. Then as you get closer, they snake the line, so you're able to people watch. They're the first ones to be able to do that. Then as you get closer yet, they create a pre-show for the experience. You start to learn about the experience, create anticipation and suspense for what you're going to do on the actual experience. So basically extending the beginning of the ride, not to when you get on the ride, but before that with the pre-show. They then created the fast pass system that allow you to skip the ride, or at least take that wait time to just about 5 minutes as you come when your time is there by setting that time in advance. And now in the Disney app, they just created this last year is ways of being able to interact with the entire world that they have created on that ride while you're in line and doing games and learning information and other things, right? All taking that time that would be wasted just sitting there waiting for the ride and turning it into time well spent. But as you might have gathered from that empty space up on the right, there's one more level here that you ought to think about, is going from time well spent to what I'll call time well invested. Time well invested, where you help people with the time they spend with you invest in themselves or invest in the world and make themselves better in some way or make the world better in some way. And that's another level beyond experiences, is going from time well spent to time well invested. And what is that? Well, that is another economic offering, this progression of economic value, where you recognize that as experiences eventually commoditized, that's where you get the phrase, been there, done that. That's a commoditized experience, don't need to do it again, right? Well, when you customize that experience, when you design that experience that's so appropriate for this particular person, exactly the experience that they need at this moment in time, well, then you can't help but turn to what we often call a life-transforming experience. An experience that changes us in some way, and that I call a transformation. And a transformation is the fifth and final economic offering in this progression of economic value. We're using experiences as the raw material to help people change, and particularly to help them achieve their aspirations, help them to become who they want to become, help them invest the time that they spend with you that pays dividends now and into the future. And many businesses are really in the transformation business, built on top of those experiences, because we only ever change through experiences. As the saying goes in the U.S., that we are all the product of our experiences, right? That's who we are, comes about from the experiences that we have. And so, for example, the London Business School, the former Dean John Quelch once told Fast Company magazine that we're not in the education business, we're in the transformation business. We expect everyone who participates in the program at the London Business School, whether it's for 3 days or for 2 years, to be transformed by the experience. That's a different mindset. That's a different level of value that you create. And John talks about how it changes even how the custodians, the janitors, do their work when they recognize that they're here to help students become who they want to become. Right? That's what happens to them after graduation that is most important, not what happens during it. And all the experiences you have during the university are there to set up that career that you have afterwards. Right? The university is time well invested in your future self. This is the College of Extraordinary Experiences that they have every September in this 12th century castle in Poland. It's an amazing place. It's basically a live action role-playing game, a LARP, if you've ever heard of that, where you dress up, right, in these sort of like wizard costumes and the idea is to become an experienced designer by the end of the weekend that you spend with them. And it's an amazing experience and where you're learning all these tools, all these techniques, you're trying things out, you become part of a group that works together for this entire time, and at the end of it, you basically become an experienced designer, right? You transform yourself through the experience that you have here. This is a hospital in the U.S. Called Mid-Columbia Medical Center, and this is their Celilo Cancer Center, and here what they want to do is they want to reduce the stress in your life. They recognize that stress is a huge contributor to disease. It's a huge reason why people don't heal, that they're stressed out about everything. So at the Celilo Cancer Center, they make sure that you de-stress while you're getting treatments there. That's why they have this actually over here. They have this labyrinth there, so you can go through that labyrinth and meditate and calm down. The waiting rooms look like this. As you're waiting for your procedures. When you get a procedure at the cancer center, every person can have a massage or have a whirlpool beforehand, right, to get rid of the stress before you go through the procedure, because then the chances it will help in your healing process are so much higher that you'll have better outcomes. In fact, I work more in the healthcare industry than any other industry for the simple reason that research shows that the better the patient experience, the better the outcome. In other words, the chances that they heal go up. The time it takes to heal goes down because of the experience that people have. So it is about achieving aspirations. When you think about that, think about in terms of from-to statements. Where are they today? What do they want to become? And in any business you're in, you can think about where are your clients, where are your customers today? What do they want to become? And how do you then design the set of experiences that takes them from where they are today to where they want to be, right? And all those experiences are that time well invested in helping them achieve their aspirations. There is no greater economic value you can provide than to help a customer achieve his aspirations. Because with the transformations, the customer is the product. The customer is the product. It doesn't matter. All the activities you do are immaterial if the customer doesn't achieve his aspiration. In fact, what have you done? If you spent all this time with the customer and all these experiences and they don't get the outcomes that they want, you've wasted their time. Right? You wasted their time because they didn't get the aspiration that they wanted. Right? The customer is the product. And again, you are what you charge for. Right? So what do you charge for with transformations? Right, with transformations, what you need to do is go beyond charging for time to charging for the demonstrated outcome that your customers achieve. So that in some way you get paid based on how well they achieve their aspiration. Because again, inputs don't matter, only outcomes. And we see that happening more and more as well. The head of Medtronic, the CEO, did an interview with Wall Street Journal last year where he talked about that they want to get to the point where you only pay if it works. Only if you get the outcomes you want. He says that Medtronic is focused on technologies to improve outcomes, and we're moving just like the rest of healthcare to a value-based model where we get paid in some fashion for actually achieving the outcome. Now, you may also get paid for service parts. You may also get paid for experience parts, but you're not truly in the transformation business unless you get paid for outcomes. Just like Walt Disney gets you to buy goods, Mickey Mouse hats and watches. They get you to buy services, parking services, food services, photographic services, but you're going there for the experience. And in this case, what you're looking for is a transformation. So you can charge along the spectrum, but you're truly in the transformation business when you charge for outcomes. And in fact, any industry that is in the business of helping their customers become healthy, wealthy, or wise, to use Ben Franklin's famous formulation, all of them are moving to outcomes-based compensation. Right? You can already see it. And if that's your business, if your business is one of making your customers become healthy, wealthy, or wise, then you too will eventually have to charge for outcomes to align what you charge for with what your customers value. Because if you don't do it, your competitors are going to do it. Right? It's shifting towards outcomes. Because that's, again, time well invested. So you can think about time well spent, right? So you got time well saved, services and below. Experiences are about time well spent, and that's where you find worlds of wonder. Right, worlds of wonder, you create a world of wonder, you need to charge admission for it. But transformations are about time well invested. That again, the people are investing that time and paying dividends down now and into the future that helps them become better people, achieve what they want. And you can think of this, if you excuse me, Stan, for modifying your little logo here, think of this as worlds of worth. Worlds of worth that understands the value of the individual person, the value of every human being on this planet. And how can we help every human being on this planet achieve the outcomes that they desire, achieve the aspirations that they want, because of the inherent worth of every individual. Dankjewel.
Thank you, Joseph Pine. Your experience, you're from the United States. A lot of
noticed. You noticed.
I noticed, yeah. A lot of the projects that Tinker does are in Europe. Is there a difference between Europe and the United States in terms of the transformation that you are sketching?
In terms of shifting into transformations, I have not noticed one. I mean, there are basic cultural differences in different areas. You look at some countries like Britain and Canada, for example, that have government-run healthcare, right? It's going to be very difficult to get them into the transformation business, because when you're with government is that you're worried about the cost. You only have so much money that you can take from the people to give back some portion of it in their healthcare. And so to be able to do that. So
you need better capitalism in Europe for.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, but private hospitals, right, that do have a profit motive. Even nonprofits, because nonprofits. There's a lot of nonprofit hospitals in the U.S. But they recognize the value that they're providing to their patients. And again, they recognize that what they're really about, and often they come from a very much of a service mindset, service not in an economic sense, but in a sense of helping people. And therefore, they recognize that outcomes are what it's all about. And the best way to get to where you're providing the best outcomes is not just based off the patient experience, but in recognizing that that's the business that you're in. Yeah. Is of transformation, of time well invested, and the best way to make that happen is to charge for outcomes.
Yeah. Do you need a very market-based economy like that one of the United States to get to that point, or are there other ways?
I would say you're going to have a very hard time getting there without one.
Okay, a very hard time.
Very hard. It's impossible, but when you let market forces play, right, they'll provide what people want.
Okay, thanks. Let's hold that one for a moment.
All right.
Okay. So, the third speaker, Eric Baer. Please join me on stage. I once gave Eric a present, the little booklet, Boring Postcards by David Parr. Do anyone of you know it? It's a beautiful book with boring postcards. And he returned it. He didn't want it. He wasn't in the business of boring postcards. I thought maybe there's value in boredom, maybe. And actually, maybe with Worlds of Wonder, he said, no, there's no value in boredom. There's only value in wonder. So, Eric, the stage is yours.
Thank you. So, let's get started. So Stan and Joe have been talking about the what and the why of how. And now I would like to take the opportunity to talk a little bit more about the how of wow. as Stan already explained, we've been doing this for 27 years now, and actually we have a hard time explaining what it is that we are actually doing. People always seem to like it, but we are never really able to explain it. So that's why I thought I'll take the opportunity of explaining a little bit more about the ins and outs of our work. But as I was preparing this presentation, actually I thought there is something even more promising that I would like to share with you. And that is exactly right the opposite, the wow of how. Because I thought I can bore you with all kinds of explanations of what it is that we are actually doing. But actually what I really want to do is to share with you what an incredible job we actually have. I would like to show you the energy and the passion that we have on a daily basis. So actually what we are going to see is the wow of how. And I would like to start off with this page in the book. I don't know how many people of you have seen it. Most people have seen it, but they haven't read it. Everybody says, great book. I still have to start reading it, but I flipped through the pages. Well, actually, we devoted a lot of care to all the words, all the images, and to all the different pages. But actually, personally, this is my favorite. Because without a single word, actually, it says everything that has to be said. There is great energy, there is great diversity, and there's great beauty in all these images. And this is really what we do in a nutshell, from all the challenges till the celebration. So now I would like to take the opportunity of turning the camera around and give you a behind-the-scenes view of experience design. And it all started a long time ago, even longer than the 27 years that we are working together. This is a book that my parents had in their library and that always hugely fascinated me. The structure of magic. When I was a little boy, I really thought this was a great book. I had no clue what it actually meant, but it had this great feel. A book about magic, that was really something special. But actually the whole notion that there could be a structure behind this magic, that you can actually learn how you create magic, that was really fascinating. In the end, it turned out to be slightly less evocative than this promises. It is about language patterns, it's psychology sessions inducing change. But nevertheless, the key concept remains the same, finding a consistent way of creating meaningful change in people. So ever from the start that we started with our company, this was the key driver of everything that we did. At first, intuitively, we were young, 21, and we just started off doing whatever we thought was right. But over time, gradually, more and more consciously, and more in a deliberate fashion, we really thought about this. And once we decided to write a book, this actually became our first working title, out of many, I have to admit. So, the how of wow, the structure of magic, worlds of wonder. Stan already showed lots of different words. We always seem to struggle with all those words. In the end, it doesn't really matter how you describe it. It's all the same. And it is, in the end, about the challenge of creating these faces. Some of them look amazed, excited, puzzled, energized, sparked, inspired. And this is what we call designing uplifting experiences for curious people. Crafting people's experience for an inspired moment. And this is, for me, really the most beautiful job there is. And there is one thing that never ceases to amaze me. And that is that there is literally any topic in the entire world can be inspired. Whether you're talking about silver, Indian masks, World War II, insects, Maggie bottles, old stones, and even taxes. It doesn't really matter. Experience design seems to work for a wide array of topics. So that is truly fascinating. I mean, whether we talk about culture, or food, or history, or, for that matter, nature, society, or science, it all seems to work. And why is that? I think that the reason why this works is that behind all these different topics, every single topic that you can imagine in the entire world, there are people that are incredibly curious and passionate about them. And it is our job to really bring that passion and curiosity to life. As Stan already said, experience design is like recreating the inside of a curious mind. And one of the great joys of our work is that we actually get to meet those curious minds and dive really into their worlds. So we get to visit age-old fortresses and by even older volunteers. Or we walk on Atlantic wall beaches to feel the sense of place. We are invited in amazing factories to see what's happening inside. Or we dig for treasures with archaeologists. And for that matter, in our latest big projects, we get to roam through 14 million natural history objects. We are able to actually get close to these giant whales, touch them, feel them, in a way that visitors are never able to do. Or we listen to the amazing story of the tiger that once used to live inside the skin. And we see and feel the passion of all these bearded experts that can tell you everything about butterflies, insects, sea mammals, plants, dinosaurs, and all kinds of creatures you never knew existed. Now, that is really cool, right? So this is what we do. And that is really a great part of the job. And once we are inspired, now it's time to turn this inspiration into big ideas and grand visions that really express the essence and that passion for everybody else. And a good vision is both imaginative, but also meaningful. And this, although you may not believe me, is really hard work. It really looks like the most exciting part of our job for most people, but actually is one of the hardest parts. And the reason is that those visions really should be exciting, but not too much, because then it will scare people, especially our clients and their stakeholders. It is really about finding the right balance between excitement and trust. Because when you look at these visions, they really need to take people on a ride. And it is very difficult to find that right balance. But once you have really found that balance, this really becomes the basis of the rest of the project. But if you don't, they remain castles in the air. Great ideas floating around in space without touching the ground. So the real art of wonder lies in matching excitement and trust. And for the first 8 years of our company, we were called Air Castle Company. And we were very good at coming up with ideas, but not so good at realizing them. And it took us these hard lessons and also a change of name to get the real Imagineering business going. So once the concept is accepted, the project can start, and then the real experience design is also starting. We sometimes refer to this formula as a formula for our work. It may sound like a little word game, but actually it's a good reflection of all the disciplines and the dimensions that are involved in experience design. It takes all of this to get from an idea to an experience design, to XD. Let's take a closer look. We first have all the people that come up with ideas, with strategies, with stories, and that make them more visual. This is the idea part. Then we have the 2D and 3D designers that are actually creating the world of wonder. They are working with graphics, with photographics, with objects, interiors, and spaces. And now there's something very important, because this is still 2 and 3D. And as Joe already explained, there is something else, the 4D aspect, which all revolves around time. And it starts off with audiovisual design, making a world of wonder really come to life. And this is even enhanced by audio, by light, and by interaction design. Something that never happens in theme park for Disney or in theaters. People actually get to use our places and decide for themselves which route they are taking or how they want to use the space. And there are even more disciplines involved. There is architecture, and working with architects, I don't know if there are any in the room, is an art in itself, whether they are creating a new building or whether it's about a renovation. We have guys like the hard and software guys that they are working with, because hard and software is often the backbone of everything that we do. There are special effects. And by the end, we are going through a construction phase. There are numerous producers sitting around the table, making sure the job is done. There is art direction to make sure that we stay on quality. And there is project management, guiding everybody else to make sure that all these creatives stay on time and budget. So this is the Imagineering business, from the imagination part until the engineering department working together to really create these worlds of wonder. Exciting? Yes, absolutely, but also quite complex. And I often feel like it's probably one of the most challenging ones in the creative industry. And now we get to the stage where all these efforts lead to our castles in the air slowly being materialized. This is the point where we are building, we are testing, we are fine-tuning, we are detailing, finding out that some things we thought were wonderful suddenly don't work at all, and others unexpectedly do. And this is also the point where the structure slowly gives way to magic, and where our private experiences slowly but gradually become a public one. And then finally, it is D-Day. This is the time when that is actually one of the scariest moments for any creative, when other people start to judge your work. We ourselves are still busy with all the details on our list, trying to figure out how we can still improve, and our clients as well. But yet, the doors have to open and people really will take over. So, but also, this is the moment, if we do the job right, where all those big and smaller ideas and all these efforts will truly have led to worlds of wonder.
Dus met de elementen rondom het orde. Iemand moet de balans herstellen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, well, you can sit where you want. I'll stand. Thank you. Well, that was quite an experience. Thank you very much. So this is the time that you wake up and start thinking, what was my question again? So this is the time. And while you're thinking about that, I'll have a question for you. Maybe first for Joe, because Eric beautifully explained what the hard part is. The balance between excitement and trust. For all these companies that you say need to focus on transformation, what is the hard part for them?
The hard part for them is I think of as to understand the customer as the individual human being they are, or the corporate business entity they are, if it's a B2B. Because there's a great moral responsibility here, because you're mucking around with somebody's insides, right? You're changing them from the inside, and putting them in a vulnerable position where it often can go either one of two ways, and one way is not good, and one way is the right way. So there is that balance there, and just an incredible. Just way of feeling about it, to understand what it is that you're doing and how high a moral imperative I think you have in being in that business.
Yeah. The hard part is taking that responsibility.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
and doing it wisely.
Yeah. Do you recognize the notion that it's a responsibility that you're taking once you're putting people in experiences like this, Tom?
Well, the transformational experience is just what we're entering now. It's for us, it's also the next level.
Yeah.
And yes, it is about taking experience on outcome. So until now, it was experience in wow and in amazement, but now it's going to be an experience in outcome. So how will people remember what they did in our places? Will they use their information? And we have our first experiments, they're also in the book, about how to deal with this new thing. And yes, it's an extra obligation, but it's fucking purpose. So this is what you do it for.
Yeah.
Okay. You're not in a recreation business anymore.
Not in the recreation business anymore.
Not more, no.
Okay. So, are there any questions? There's one. Who's got a question? Who's got a message for the guys on stage? Because this is always a thing. Do you have a message? Anyone? Commentary? No? Okay, then we'll start with the questions. A combination. Okay, these are the best. Tell me who you are.
I'm Mees de Lind van Wijngaarden. I call myself a social pioneer. I want to proceed on this aspect of responsibility. How do you look on the tension field between commercial and how would I call it? Social responsibility. Because I see a lot of very valuable applications possible, for instance, in healthcare. You mentioned it. But I think if you look how we develop as a society at the moment, I'm thinking we are on a dead-end street. And I think we have to really change radically. And I think this can really help. For instance, to make clear the concept of positive health. I don't know if you know it. It's another approach in healthcare. And I think you could help to really let that land in the whole medical field. And
okay, so that's the advice. Do something with positive health.
How do you look upon this? Because I think you're a commercial enterprise, but
Right.
but do you think there's a future in really taking up this social responsibility?
One of them specifically that you're asking? Anyone? Okay.
Well, I've been accused of being a capitalist, which is very much true. I've been accused of taking only the business perspective of it, a commercial perspective of it, which is also very much true. But one of the things I will accuse most capitalists of is that they've mistakenly recognized money as the measurement of success, when in fact money is just the is a measure of the success you have elsewhere. Money is not the end, right? It's not even the means. It's simply a measure of we provided value. And that's what's key, is understanding the value you provide to people and again to businesses. And if you do that well, then the money will come. And the money is not something to focus on, the commercial side of it. What you focus on is the value that you're providing and making a difference, again, in people's lives and in businesses, entities in that, and also in the world in terms of social responsibility in that. As a capitalist, I'm very much a believer that in terms of social responsibility, you shouldn't think of it as doing well by doing good, but rather it's doing good by doing well. In other words, if you do well for customers, right, you will make a difference in the world. And it's the value you provide as a company that is the primary difference that you're making, not stuff that are ancillary to your mission over there on the side that you're doing because people want you to be corporately responsible, have corporate social responsibility. Your primary responsibility is value to your customers, and then everything else will follow, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Stan?
I have a little socialist addition to this. We are currently working for 5 hospitals, doing experience design in hospitals, and they're all public. So it's going in the right way.
Good.
Okay, that's not really socialist, Stan.
No?
Well, there is.
The hospitals are public.
Yeah, okay.
Government owned.
And yes, and everyone can enter the hospitals and enjoy this stuff.
Yeah. So is there?
Because, sorry, I think the critical point in your question is accessibility. So you can make these wonderful places that have resting areas with palm trees and etc. But is it accessible for everyone? And there's different approaches to that. But there are strong movements in the Netherlands also to make it accessible for everyone.
You say in your presentation, in yours too, there's actually not a theme that can be inspiring. So that's why you can work for non-profit and profit as well. Is there any difference between your non-profit, the way you approach non-profit clients or for-profit clients?
Or the way they approach you?
Commercial clients are simpler because they have one person that decides everything. And the more democratics are more complex.
Yeah.
But now we're finding a third form, and that is company-owned social funds. Mm-hmm. So our biggest projects now are companies that have a fund to do good, by do well, and they hire us, and that's a great way of working, really like that.
Why does that work, Erik?
Actually, it works well because it combines the advantages of doing the right thing with the simplicity of the way the capitalist or the commercial world works. So if we work for governments, for instance, or for museums, there are often many people that have to decide on everything that we do. But if we do it like this, the whole intention of this, this institution is to focus on one specific goal. Yeah. And if we think that is a good goal and we think we can make something beautiful out of it, all the energy is focused in one direction.
Yeah. Yeah. So the wanting to do good part of companies, that's where you need to be as a, as a company. Yeah. Any questions there? I'll come over to you. We need to use the mic because of the live stream.
Yes. So hi, I'm Victor. I'm also a designer, kind of a colleague. As Joe didn't say anything about what kind the experience needs to be, digital, virtual, or physical. There's still a gap between the digital experiences and the physical experiences, but nowadays with virtual reality, that gap becomes smaller. Do you see yourself becoming a digital company in the future, while that gap is becoming smaller, that you can distinguish a real physical experience from a digital experience? I wonder about your vision.
Who's the question targeted on? You. Oh, looking at me? Okay.
Stop.
Yeah. Well, actually, we confine to old-fashioned dimensional spaces, actually. We think that, in principle, the digital space has the same psychological or perceptual laws, but we're good at this. And the very interesting thing is that since the internet revolution, our company become growing. So I think the more digital the world gets, the bigger the need to real places with real connections with real people gets. So I think we will stick to old-fashioned places, and good luck with the digital world.
But yet, in the experience for the 12-year-olds with the medical place and that, you're all using digital projection.
It's not digital projection, yeah, but it's a real dimensional space. But you're right.
You're creating a virtual world on the ceiling for them to experience what it's like because they couldn't do it physically.
Absolutely.
And that's where virtual worlds and digital technology really comes about, is things that you cannot do physically, you can do them virtually, and that is, in fact, what you did there, whether it's analog or digital on the
But can we have a deal then to call that augmented reality? Because we have to,
right, exactly.
Yeah. Because the virtual reality closes everyone off from this world, and it's quite autistic. It's here and you're on your own. And as soon as there's an invention that you can be in cyberspace together, then maybe the game changes. But as long as it is socialistic, it's not interesting for us.
Okay, there's a question here.
Hi, do you think any products or brands create this wow transformational experience actually in the home, or do you think that's even possible?
You said, do you think brands can create it, or?
So do you think any products or brands create a wow transformational experience actually in the home, in people's homes, or is that even possible?
In the home?
In the home.
In the home. Oh, yeah.
That would open a big market.
And she has a very good English accent.
Yes, and now we're not used to it anymore.
We're with a Donglish and American, and okay.
I know, exactly.
So the home.
That's a difficult one. I mean,
why?
Well, it relates back to the question before. The reason, one of the reasons why we are in this business of creating physical spaces is that we like to create something immersive. It becomes much more of an experience when it's immersive, and it's almost the same thing when it's well directed. It sometimes may seem like a simple thing, but there's lots of effort involved. And when you do something at home, the interaction or the interactive part becomes even bigger. Basically, you have no clue what people will do with whatever you have designed. And it's already a challenge when people are in our worlds of wonder, but when we put our worlds of wonder in their home, it's very difficult to find out what will actually happen. Or you will revert to virtual elements, but then you're, in most cases, closed off from a social environment, which you don't want to do.
Yeah. But I would say that it's much more difficult, but it is possible.
Yeah.
Right, because you can't control as much. You don't have as much control of the environment. You don't have much control of the time because there are interruptions that can happen, in family, neighbors, cats, dogs, et cetera. But it's certainly possible, and it is in fact being done today. You mentioned about being cut. You're cut off when you're virtual experience, but there are some people in homes today that are already cut off, right? That don't have a social interaction because they're bedridden or other things. And there's things that can be done by delivering experiences to them virtually. You can also think about the gaming industry and how people who play games, and you think about Fortnite as the most recent one that's just captured a lot of time that people have, is that they get better and better at it. They actually are transformed. That they become excellent gamers, to be a little bit generic about it. Those sorts of things can be applied other places. There are companies that are actually seeking people now who have played games from a very young age because of the skills that they have in analyzing situations and thinking holistically and being able to have a lot of input and then be able to react quickly. There's a lot of places where that is good, and that's a transformation that they've gone on through the world of wonder that is in fact the game.
My simplest answer would probably be that you could have asked this question 100 years ago when the first movies arrived. Could you have this at home? Yes, we have it. It's called TV. But there is still a difference between watching TV at home or going to the movies. And it's probably something similar.
Okay. Any additions, Dan?
Well, yeah, you should have seen my house 10 years ago. Then I got married with Margie, who was an excellent creator of rooms, and it was surely transformative. And very analog.
Very do-it-yourself.
Very do-it-yourself. No, I didn't do anything on that.
Don't ask Tinker, ask Maartje. Yeah. Okay.
Lives.
Yeah.
So, here's a question also.
My name is Barry Veldhoen. I'm very familiar with Joe Pine.
Hey, Barry.
I'm founder of Altruition. I have a question about the relationship between wandering and learning. There seem to be very connected themes. And as we all know, in this era, machines, digital machines, computers, robots, seems to be learning at a much higher speed than humans might do. So my question is, how do you see the coming 10, 15 years if you compare humans wandering, learning, and machines wandering, learning?
This is a very good question for two psychologists. Okay, take it away, boys.
For two ex-CKI
Psychologists.
Actually, we studied artificial intelligence.
Yes.
And everything that sounded like sci-fi 25 years ago is happening today.
Yeah.
So perhaps we did pick the wrong profession. But what do you think, Sam?
I really don't know. I showed this photograph of Rocket Man that was launched into the sky by Elon Musk, and I must say, more and more I have these moments where I think we are really living in the future. That what we saw in the 80s and in the sci-fi films then, it's really happening. This is the future. It has arrived. Right now it's here, I think. Look at skylines of modern cities. It is the Jetsons. And so I think we finally arrived in the future. Here it is. And now we see what to do with it. And then I think back to the guys with the flashlights I showed. We don't know it anymore. We have to find a new way. And I think the solutions and the new interpretations, the new narratives that we need are growing inside our heads. And the essence of what we have to do is bring out that subjective, hack each other's brains to see what is brewing there, because that's where the solutions start. And it's not in papers and films, it's something deeply subjective. That's what we're looking at.
I would add there's two things in Stan's presentation that pertain here. One is when you had the entire set of slides in this room filled with the pictures of people, often kids, but people with wonder, right? And seeing that, and then you said, this is why, was that in Eric's presentation?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. Seeing why, why you're in this business, of the amazement that they had. And in your presentation then, with the circle and the person, all that, all those words around there, but that world of wonder being at the edge of what we know and what we don't know, I have to go back and verify, but I will bet you all of those words are things that machines can't do.
Can't do.
Machines can't wonder. They don't have curiosity. That you could fake it. I mean, you could program it in a way that they could fake wonder, but it's not true wonder. Only humans have that, and wonder is a great spark of learning.
Yes. Another was play.
Right.
Machines cannot play for fun.
Right.
Give me more. What you have made that diagram.
Right.
In the book.
Dare, I think, was one of them, or
Surprise.
Yeah, but you always change it, so I...
It'll be in the next edition.
So next time you change it, make sure it's something that machines can't do.
Yeah. Okay.
But the funny thing is that there seem to be a lot of questions about digital stuff and computers and so on. But perhaps in the end we have become old guys and slightly old-fashioned as well, because we really love the old-fashioned stuff, the real experience, the authenticity, and people being in a room. And actually what we are looking for is something that, like Stan said in the beginning, has been there for 35,000 years. People being inside a cave or doing whatever they are doing, something very simple. And that is really the idea why we call ourselves experience designers, because we want to craft something that is happening here and here and here. And of course we use a lot of digital tools, but that is a means, but it's not the end.
Okay. Good old stagecraft. That's actually what it is. There's a question here.
If you want to go from a service model to a transformational model, how would you suggest doing that when you're not that high up in the company you're working for?
Is that a personal question?
That's a charming one.
Right. Says one of the
So how do you do
youngest guys in the room.
it? How do you do it?
It's obviously very difficult from your standpoint. But one of the things I always recommend is get the powers that be, the ones that do have this, get them to experience this for themselves, right? In some way, shape, or form. Take them out to a transformation. Take them out to a set of experiences. Do an experience expedition in the city, or take them other places. Just get a list of all the things these people have designed and drive to them and see them, and get them to experience for themselves and see the results, see the possibilities that are there. And then the other thing is, in fact, appeal to the value that can be created, that you can create more value through experiences and transformations than you can through services. And so so even wherever you are in the company, you might be able to do that on a small level and just sort of see what a difference it can make. And even though you're still charging for the service, and then say, okay, well, can we do that again? Can we do it more and start to turn it into a bubble that grows within the company?
Okay. Any additions in advice? Yeah, you never worked for a company, so always at your own. Here's a question.
Hi, my name is Hisham. Firstly, thank you for the presentation. It was honestly interesting. But at the same time, I'm a bit worried because the experience economy sounds very good, very positive. But how can we control the experience, and who should do that? Because I'm a bit worried bad people could abuse the experience.
Yeah, and that's never happened with commodities, goods, or services. That's the nature of the world. Yes, bad things can happen, but I agree. It probably is more worrisome because you can do more damage, with experiences and transformations than you can effectively with commodities, goods, and services. So I'm not saying don't worry about that. Any technology we have can be used for good or can be used for ill. Any possibility we have for creating value can be used for good, can be used for ill. And the key is to be aware of it. And if you're aware of it, then you can counteract those things that are more deleterious effects, as opposed to those things that are more edifying, that more build people up, as opposed to tear them down.
Okay. Did you ever, as thinker, didn't accept a client because you thought, oh, now we don't want to learn the bad guys how to do it?
We've been on the edge. We've been on the edge, yes, and had some fierce discussion, or should we do this? Yes, we will not do any subjects.
Yeah, okay.
But on the same, the risk you're posing is real. Everyone wants to hack your experience. In fact, it's happening right now, because everyone wants to influence you, and yeah, that will become only stronger and stronger as the media develop more. But I think we're capable of tackling that as people.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you see it as a conflict or something to be tackled, Eric, or do you see it? No, or are you sure you can pick the bad guys from the good guys?
Well, it's like what Joe said. Every instrument or every idea can be used to good and bad ends. So it is our job to do the right thing.
Yeah. Do you ever talk about
what we are trying to do?
Do you ever talk about in the boardroom about these things, or are they self-evident in a way?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Okay. So it is. You see the danger. So this a bit.
No, really, we do.
Okay.
It's a bit conscious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions? Compliments, commentary. I feel we can go on all night.
Hello, my name is Elvina Shirley. I'm working for a company called Unlimited Snow, who is a similar industry. We also provide experience, but in real snow and ice. Mm-hmm. So after seeing your presentation, I'm very impressed. So I'm wondering some questions, and I want to ask Eric. Mm-hmm. One thing you mentioned about the balance between new technology and new things with, balance new things and fearing and trust, I believe. And it's something touched me because when I read the newspapers everywhere, we got a little bit overstimulation, too much entertainment or too much stimulation. How you would balance this brand new idea or new technology with our daily experience, or still let us feel trust or safe, still get certain curiosity? I don't know if I make it clear or not.
How do you stay curious in this world full of impulses and excitement?
Yeah, I also think that the question is about trying to find a balance, because you can do a lot of things. It doesn't mean you have to use them to the greatest extent. When we are talking about, I mean, one of the biggest problems for us is that people, mostly our friends and family, say, oh, wow, that's an experience. And they say this about the stupidest things on earth. So everything these days tends to be an experience. That is why we really had long conversations whether we were going to call our book experience design or whether we should be talking about Imagineering. And the reason why in the end we are talking about experience design is because it seemed to be a field that existed and other people are working in this. But we are using lots of technologies, and experiences could be overwhelming. Technologies can be used in an overwhelming way. And this is really what happens when new technologies are used. They tend to be used in an overwhelming way. And what we tell our clients very often is that, for instance, if you work with light or sound or projections, you can also do it in a very subtle way, which often has a much greater effect, because people can only take so much. In a good arc tension, you have highs and lows. So I don't know if this answers your question, but using all this in a more delicate way often works much better than if you do it very overwhelmingly.
Moderation.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Hi, I'm Vincent. I work at Tinker, and I have a question for Joe. You were talking about the future and the next steps, transforming experiences. Let's say in now 5 years, everyone is transformed. Would there be a next step, or are we going to transform and transform again? Or is there a next, like, Super Saiyan level in experience design?
A new book, Joe.
Yeah. I believe there isn't another level. I believe there are 5 and 5 only economic offerings. One reason is because I've looked at all the, tried to look at all the possible ways that you could charge for things, and I think those 5 things cover the gamut of that. 2, we have this heuristic, right? You may have noticed up there. I didn't talk about the customization aspect once, but there's a heuristic that commoditization drags you down, customization lifts you up. And so the first thing is, if the customer is the product, can they be commoditized? Right? Can you commoditize individual human beings? But in fact, individual human beings, all human life has an inherent worth to it. And therefore, you can't commoditize it. It's why we often rebel against things like selling body parts and things like that, because you're turning humans into a commodity. So there's that problem with that part of it. And then we think about customizing things, that what would be, if you customize a transformation, what could it possibly turn into? And the only thing we could think of other than another transformation is where you'd customize things so much that you would perfect somebody. And when you talk about perfecting somebody, you're no longer talking about the economies of human beings. That's something only God can do. And therefore, that's why we think that there is no economic offering after that.
It stops at the gates.
Yeah.
I would say famous last words. So.
Okay. One last burning questions. Okay. Save it for the bowl, because it's 9:45. Everybody's thirsty. One last little round. What is the thing you're most curious about right now? What is in this circle of curiosity with you at the moment?
Do people have an understanding what the book is about?
Okay, that's a good one. Okay, that's a good one to check during the bowl.
Yeah.
What's the thing you're most curious about at the moment?
And thinking not just about this evening, but in general, in fact, it goes back to your question. I'm always curious about what's next. I'm always asking what's next. And there are levels of things, even though I don't think there's another economic offering, there are ways in which it plays out, and thinking about how could you do that. In particular, how could you get down to providing value to individual people? So one of the things I'm working on right now is a book that recognizes the fact that there are no markets, there are only customers. Therefore, we have to stop marketing and start customering.
That's some other people are also curious about. What's the thing you're most curious about at the moment, Erik?
The thing I'm most curious about is we've been doing this now for 27 years, and we still hope to do it for some more. But I would really like to invest our time in what Joe calls these transformations, and I would really like to know if there is a real market for this. We believe there is, but to be honest, I'm also a little bit fed up with making experiences that are just fun and great to have, but I would really like to do all these other things.
The transformation business.
Yep. Okay. So I hope there is.
Okay. Thank you, Erik Beer. Thank you, Stan Boshuis. Thank you, Joseph Pine.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Well, Joe, thanks.
Thank you.
You can actually buy the book